you need a 55% alcohol solution. On hand, you have 520 milliliters of a 25% alcohol mixture. You also have 95% alcohol mixture. How much 95% mixture will you need to add to obtain the desired solution? So it's a little chemistry problem here. So let me lay out for you. The way that most people solve these, I think, is good. I'm just going to go with the standard method, and that is just to make, let me just make some little buckets or beakers. Bucket number 1 plus bucket number 2 equals bucket number 3. The buckets always come up the same size. All right, so there we go. We're gonna, whoops, I'm making random marks. There we go. So how do we use these buckets? Well, basically, what I'm going to do with these buckets is I'm going to put the percentages along the bottom. So I'll say, okay, you need a 55%. So that's going to go over here, 55%. And because that's the final thing we're trying to make, right? We're going to take something plus something else to equal what we have in the end, what we need, what we want in the end. And then you have 520 milliliters of a 25%. We have a 25%, and we have a 95%. So put the percentages on the bottoms, put the amounts across the tops. It says that we have 520 milliliters of the 25%, so that goes right here. 520, that's how much of that kind of solution. We have 520 milliliters of the 25% solution. Okay, and I don't know the other spots. What should I do? Well, call this one X and this one Y. Just like that. You get those two blanks, call it X, call Y. Okay, and so now if we have two letters, so you know what that means. It means we need to have two equations. So the first equation is the tops, the amounts. So in other words, 520 plus X equals Y. Now, why is that true? Well, because the amount of stuff coming out of the first beaker plus the amount of stuff coming out of the second beaker must equal the total amount of stuff in the final beaker, right? We're combining these two beakers to equal the third beaker. So the amount of stuff coming out of the first one, the second one has to equal the third one. Okay, now that's for the tops. And now the second one comes from multiplying top and bottom. That's the amount of, in this case, alcohol. So I'm going to multiply top times bottom. So 520 times 0.25, I got to change it to a decimal, plus, and then multiply these two, 0.95. So we always change our percentages to decimals when we use them in an equation, and then this one, which will be 0.55y. Now, what's up with that? Well, what we're doing there is that equation is true because it's the amount of alcohol. What do I mean? Well, if I told you you got 520 milliliters, as we say right here, 520 milliliters of a 25% alcohol solution. What does that mean? That means that solution is 25% alcohol, meaning it's 75% water and it's 25% pure alcohol. That makes sense? So how much actual alcohol is in there? Well, 25% of the 520, meaning 25%, 0.25 times the 520. That gets you the actual amount of alcohol coming out of the first beaker, along with a bunch of water. And then the amount of actual alcohol in the second beaker, same thing. You just multiply the percent by the amount, even though the amount's X. Eventually we'll know it. whatever it is, you just multiply those, and that's the amount of alcohol out of the second beaker. Does that make sense? Coming out of each one of these beakers is both water and pure alcohol. Same thing here. Coming out of this beaker is water and, right, it's this one's 5% water, and it's got some pure alcohol, which is, it's 95% pure alcohol. This one over here was what, 75% water, only 25% pure alcohol, right? And then coming into the final beaker is some water, right? They add up to equal water and, again, pure alcohol. How much? Well, it says, oops, I did that backwards. Alcohol. It says it's 55% pure alcohol. That makes it 45% water. But anyway, so anytime you combine these beakers, coming out of this beaker is going to be water and pure alcohol. Out of this one, water and pure alcohol. Out of this one, water and pure alcohol. The first equation was the total amount of stuff, water and alcohol all together. The total amount of stuff, 520 milliliters, coming out of the first beaker, plus the total amount of stuff coming out of the second beaker, it's got to equal the total amount of stuff, water and alcohol combined, in the final beaker, right? Because we mix the first two, and that is the third one. The third one is just a mix of the first two. Okay, well, then what about the second equation? Well, that's pure alcohol, because if we say these 520 milliliters is 25% pure alcohol, then if you multiply that, 0.25 times 520, you'll get pure alcohol. So pure alcohol coming out of this one, same thing here, pure alcohol coming out of the second one, because I multiplied them also, 0.95 times x equals pure alcohol, them multiplied in the final beaker. Pure alcohol coming out of the first, pure alcohol out of the second is pure alcohol in the final. All right, so there's our two equations. Let's go ahead and multiply these together right now. What's that going to be? 250, 130, isn't it? Here, let me just say this comes out to be 130. If you multiply that, let me double check. Yeah, 130. Okay, so we have two equations with two letters. You know what to do. In fact, y is already alone here. So just grab this right here and plug it in for y right there, right? So step one, y is already alone in the top. Plug y into the bottom. Okay, so what are we going to get then? This is going to be 130. We've already multiplied those. Plus 0.95x equals 0.55 times y. And what is y? 520 plus x, right? It's like that, because y equals, that first equation says that y equals 520 plus x, meaning y is the same as 520 plus x. So put in 520 plus x. Okay, and so then let's distribute. So use your calculator, 0.55 times 520, I have no idea. Getting 286 plus 0.55 times x. This is 130 plus 0.95x, okay. How do we solve for x? Well, we got to, when you have x's on opposite sides, you got to subtract them. Like so. Whoop, doesn't cancel there. Cancels here, huh? So we get 286 over there, and here it's going to be 130 plus 0.40x, and then subtract 130. And this is 156. Last step, divide by 0.40. And we get x equals 390. So x is 390. So now what does that mean? Well, you always got to bring that back now. So let's bring back, so that means x right here is 390. And well, what are they asking for? Let's go to their actual question. Get this out of the way here. They're asking how many milliliters of the 95% solution? Well, that's it. It's 390. Done. Right? Because that's the 95% solution, which is what they asked for. How many milliliters of the 95%? 390 is the amount of the 95% solution. So we're done. There we go. So how did we do that again? we have a mixture problem. You make 3 beakers. The first beaker plus the second beaker equals the mix, the final mix. You need 55%, so that's what you want the final mix to be, 55%. Put the percentages on the bottom. You have a 25% and a 95%. And they told you have 520 milliliters of the 25%, so I put that above the 25%. This is X and this is Y, 2 blanks, 2 letters. Write your 2 equations. First equation is just top, 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 because that's total amount. 520 plus X equals Y. Second equation is multiply top and bottom. That's the amount of alcohol. Multiply those two, and you get the actual amount of alcohol in the first beaker plus alcohol in the second beaker equals alcohol in the third beaker. Multiply, multiply, multiply. These two make 130. And then just Y is already alone. You know how we handle 2 letters, 2 equations. Y is already alone in the top. Y equals 520 plus X. Just plug that into the bottom. So I just plugged in for Y right there. Distribute, solve for X. And there's our answer. There we go.